We were promised hot vax summer. We were told that we would have baseball games and block parties and beach days and blockbuster movies in theaters. And then the Delta. Every day, we're hearing more and more about breakthrough infections. COVID cases continue to rise around the country and around the world. One of the only bright spots is that rising with them, at least in some places, is the rate of vaccination. Demand for the vaccine in Louisiana, for example, has quadrupled. If I could spend the next 7 minutes repeating the words, "Get vaccinated," over and over and over again, without having Kinnermutlu push the button for the trap door beneath the bima, then believe me, I would. On June 6th, more than 75% of Americans believed that the worst days of the pandemic were behind us. But a recent poll found that for the first time since February, a majority of us think that the worst is now ahead of us. Feels like every time I've opened the New York Times these past couple of weeks, the headline has been some variation on the theme, "Everyone is bummed out." We wore our masks. We got our shots. We went 2 years without seeing our families. And now this? What happened to our hot vax summer? This week's Torah portion, Parshat Re'eh, begins, "Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala." See, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you obey the commandments of Adonai, your God. And the curse, if you do not obey. And then God tells us exactly what those commandments are. Smash idols, stone false prophets, make sacrifices here and not there. Eat goats, avoid pigs, give tzedakah. We get instruction manuals for Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, and much more. The bottom line, if we do what we're supposed to do, we get blessed. If we don't, we get cursed. At the most fundamental level, Parshat Re'eh's rules and rewards reflect that deepest of our human yearnings, our desire for certainty. We crave clear and consistent consequences for our actions, a precise understanding that this crime leads to that punishment, that this good deed leads to that reward. But that's not the world we live in. It stinks, and we know it, and our Torah knows it too. Because right after establishing the blessings and the curses that God has set before us, we are told, "For you are about to cross the Jordan to enter and possess the land that Adonai, your God, is assigning you. And when you have occupied it and settled in it, take care to observe all the rules and regulations that I set before you this day." When we hear those words, about and when, we remember that we are still in the wilderness. And the way of the wilderness is uncertainty. Certainty is only the law of the promised land. This pandemic isn't over. It never was. And it seems like we aren't going to get that hot vax summer we were promised. What once felt certain, a return to some degree of normalcy, appears to be getting farther away, at least for now. Let me be clear about what still is certain. Getting vaccinated will make you and everyone around you safer. Wearing masks indoors will make you and everyone around you safer. Yeah, the continuing changes in public health guidelines can be frustrating. We like certainty, but like all of us, the scientists are just doing the best that they can. Following their direction makes us safer. And I'm proud to serve a community under Dr. Shani Silverberg that continues to respond promptly and prudently to the ever-evolving circumstances presented by this pandemic. Thank you. As this week comes to an end, we've been humbled. We plan, and COVID laughs. So what's next? When we face confusing times like this together, it's always helpful to return to Torah. And it just so happens that Parshat Re'eh contains one of the Torah's most confusing passages. In one verse, we read, "There shall be no needy among you, for Adonai, your God, will bless you in the land that Adonai, your God, is giving you, if you keep all the commandments I enjoin upon you." But then, just 7 verses later, the Torah tells us, there will never cease to be needy ones from the midst of the land. There shall be no needy. There will never cease to be needy. Now that's a contradiction. So what do we do with it? The great medieval Spanish commentator Nachmanides proposes a reading of these two verses together that is instructive for our current predicament. He notes that the eradication of poverty is described as a reward that we receive for following God's commandments. Some generations will achieve this. Others won't. And we don't know which we are in. Thus, Nachmanides suggests that we should understand these two verses as a warning that neediness can never be completely eliminated. It's as if God is saying, yeah, you're going to make progress, but I know that sometimes you won't get there. So I put this reminder here for you, just in case. I want to add one observation to Nachmanides' commentary. Notice that God specifies that abundance is a blessing that will only be bestowed on the children of Israel in the land that God is giving them, in the promised land, only after we've left the wilderness, only when we've arrived in that promised place of absolute certainty. Only when we get to the promised land will we know the exact consequences of our every action, the just deserts of our every deed, the blessings and the curses. Alas, Nachmanides teaches us that sometimes, in spite of everything we do, we won't make it. And unfortunately, God doesn't promise us that certainty until we reach the promised land. But we never stop trying to get there. We're not going to get our hot vax summer. I am as bummed as all of you are. But I'm going to keep telling everyone I can to get vaccinated. I'm going to keep wearing my mask. And I'm going to hope for a chill vax fall. Shabbat shalom.